You're listening to Business Success in a Virtual World podcast. If you are a leader navigating these new immersive technologies, this is your definitive resource to understand the innovative power of XR, VR, and AR. I'm Tim Beharon, Chairman of Creative Strategies, and I'm joined by Barton, President of ISM Guide. In each episode, we navigate through new products, effective strategies, and highlight actual business case studies implementing extended reality into business processes. Our resource website now boasts over 300 case studies, 300 articles, and 100 videos presenting successful examples of businesses using these technology in field service, training, digital twins, customer service, in medical and manufacturing, and so much more. Check out the website at ismguide.com. Now, on to the next episode. This week, we're going to tackle a very new industry that we've only briefly discussed in the past, but it's the fashion industry. And as we researched this, and as Barton did a deep dive on some of these companies, boy, fascinating examples of how these companies have not only using it, but really embraced it, especially as it relates to training. So Barton, what did you find?
Well, Tim, it's a very interesting example of how VR training has penetrated a behemoth industry very effectively. So the global fashion industry consists of both apparel, so footwear, apparel, clothing, footwear, and accessories. And it has a global market value of 2.5 trillion. Now that puts it at number 10 or 11 of the largest industries globally. So this is a big, big industry, and it reflects the immense influence and economic significance of this sector. The valuation underscores the industry's role as a major contributor to the global economy, driven by our constant demand for clothing, accessories, and footwear. Now, the fashion industry consists of a big mix of luxury as well as what's called high street brands. Renowned companies like LVMH, which owns Louis Vuitton, Dior, they lead in the luxury part of the fashion business, whereas you have fashion giants like Inditex, who owns Zara, and H&M, who dominate in the fast fashion mass market. So you have, it's a real spectrum. Virtual reality training is transforming the fashion industry by providing an innovative approach to employee development and engagement. Major fashion brands including Nike and Prada and Inditex and Tommy Hilfiger and LVMH are pioneering the integration of VR into their training methodologies and enhance learning experiences and operating efficiency, and I'll be talking about those in a moment. The immersed nature of VR allows these brands to create realistic simulations of retail environments, design processes, even customer interactions, thereby offering trainees a hand-on learning experience without constraints to the actual physical world. When they incorporate VR training, fashion brands aim to streamline the training process, make it more interactive and cost-effective, but also reducing the time it takes to onboard new employees and get them up to speed. The innovative use of VR training by fashion brands improves employee skill sets. It strengthens the brand identity of the fashion house. It enhances internal operations, but it also sets entirely new standards for technology adoption in this very large industry, paving the way for a more digitally integrated future. But let's cut to the chase and get right into how 5 companies are using VR training, and I purposely chose very large and not so large. Well, not so large compared to the very large. So the first one I want to talk about is LVMH. Now that's a $95 billion luxury conglomerate. It picks up brands like Louis Vuitton, Moet and Chandon, the Champagne, Bulgari, lots of brands. It's a major player, and it's leveraged virtual reality training to elevate what they focus on is the brand experience. So in a sector where meticulous attention to detail and an intimate understanding of luxury are paramount, VR serves as a transformative tool to enhance employee skills and knowledge of LVMH products. And LVMH utilizes virtual reality to create immersive training environments that actually replicate real-life scenarios in a controlled, risk-free setting. And you're going to hear this concept of replicating real-life scenarios in a controlled, risk-free setting in all 5 of the examples I'm going to present. It's one of the real benefits of VR training. So the technology allows employees to engage in hands-on experience, explore the intricacies of product craftsmanship, the heritage storytelling of LVMH and their brands, without the constraints of traditional training methods like in-class training. For example, VR training allows a trainee to virtually experience the winemaking process at Moet and Chandon, providing a deep insights into the history and the craft that defines the brand. Similarly, an employee might virtually tour a Louis Vuitton shop, observing artisans at work and gaining a deeper appreciation of the true craftsmanship that goes into each product. By immersing trainees in a realistic simulation, LVMH ensures that its workforce gains a comprehensive understanding and appreciation for its brand values, techniques, and narratives. And that's what I mean by enhancing expertise. Additionally, VR training fosters a sense of belonging and engaging amongst employees, aligning them closely with the brand's ethos. And as LVMH continues to innovate, virtual reality remains an integral part of its strategy to maintain and enhance luxury brand experience across its very large portfolio.
Now, Barton, before you go on to the next one, I have a question on this particular one, because it does appear that the emphasis, and there's a part of an emphasis on the history and perspective of the company as a big part of this, because I was talking with Apple recently, and they have actually what's called the Apple Way, and the Apple Way is taught through a onboarding process, which is actually almost like a college course inside. And doing this virtually, I guess, really makes it helps them better understand not only what they do, but why they do it.
Yeah, Tim, it's a real good point. And many companies are adopting this now. But when you go back to a company like LVMH, which is really a conglomerate of brands that are several hundred years old in some cases, with true artisan and professionals doing the work, building the various products within the brands, it's a whole story. You're not just buying a handbag. You're buying the Louis Vuitton history of the handbag. And so by immersing trainees in the whole aura, or ethos as they call it, of how Louis Vuitton came about and what it means and so forth, that's a very important part of building camaraderie and helping employees feel like a part of a historic company
Right.
and a winning team.
Absolutely.
Okay, number two, now we're going to knock it down from 95 billion, we're going to knock it down to 51 billion, and that's Nike. And Nike is revolutionizing employee training also with VR. They've been consistently at the forefront of integrating cutting-edge technology in its operations, and the adoption of VR for employee training is no exception. And for those that have been watching our podcast since we launched them in February 2023, you'll know there's an outstandingly popular Nike podcast that I would strongly recommend you visit. It is a deeper dive into Nike that I'm going to give you now, but now I'm going to really focus just on the VR training piece. So embracing VR training, Nike has revolutionized the way it trains its staff, again, by creative, immersive, interactive environments that simulate real-world scenarios, and again, risk-free. This approach allows employees to engage in experimental learning, where they can hone their skills, acquire new knowledge in a controlled yet dynamic setting, and that could even be inside a Nike store. By using VR, Nike can replicate various situations, from complex manufacturing processes to store management and even customer service interactions, and they can tailor each module to specific training needs. This technology enables employees to experience realistic challenges without the associated risk, making the learning process more effective and less intimidating. And I will tell you, from all the studies that we've done and also the clients who we've worked with on VR training, the idea that the employee feels more confident. PwC came out with a study that showed there was a lift of 275% confidence for those employees that went to VR training versus those that went to straight classroom training. Furthermore, VR training accelerates the onboarding process for new Nike employees who quickly become familiar with Nike's operations, product, and brand ethos as well. The use of VR also fosters the culture of innovation within the company, encouraging employees to embrace technology and think creatively. And that's the idea of VR training, where you can share together different scenarios. Moreover, the data collected from VR training sessions provides valuable insight into performance and learning process. And that then allows Nike to continuously refine its training programs. So you're getting data from all the time, how people are doing, what they get stuck on, what they do very well in, and you then can modify your VR training programs fairly quickly. Nike's adoption of VR for employee training underscores its commitment to pioneering new technologies and investing in the personal and professional growth of its global workforce. And before I move on to the third one, I again want to reinforce, take a peek or take a listen to our Nike podcast. For all of you that may or may not know, these podcasts also become articles in the XR Metaverse Resource Center that Tim and I created, and that can be accessed directly on the ISM website or just by Googling Metaverse Resource Center. Okay, we saw a $92 billion company by the name of LVMH. We looked a little bit at how Nike is also using it at $51 billion. Let's step it down to a $40 billion company, and that's Inditex. They're the global fashion brand giant, renowned for brands like Zara, which most of you will know, Massimo Duetto, which is also a very fun brand. And for those that don't know, Inditex is based out of Spain, the south of Spain, and their claim to fame is constantly changing the clothing week to week, so you never get the same thing twice, and so you feel kind of, unique when you buy it. And they've made a lot of money doing that. So they're pioneers in the integration of VR into their retail staff development. So this innovative approach is part of their broader strategy to leverage technology to enhance operational efficiency and, in particular, customer engagement. By incorporating VR training into their training programs, Inditex equips its employees with cutting-edge skills necessary for the rapidly evolving retail environment. Through immersive VR simulations, Inditex staff members can experience real-world retail scenarios in a controlled, risk-free setting. And again, because they change the clothing so often, you really have to be on the move inside the store and know what's going on. This technology allows employees to better understand store layouts, customer interactions, merchandising techniques without the pressure of a live retail environment. The convenience of VR training also means that employees can practice and refine their skills at their own pace, 24/7, leading to a more personalized learning experience and a higher confidence level of those that succeed. It also, for that matter, increases retention, this VR training, about 60% more than classroom training. It drives down costs up to 75%. There's all kinds of benefits, but this is the one that Inditex finds the most.
Barton, before you move on, you mentioned something here about rapidly evolving retail environment. That's got to be critical because that changes so much. And instead of having to do a physical course, you can actually do this change in VR and software much faster, so that especially if there's a significant aspect to or change to the environment, they can be much more proactive. Is that right?
You're absolutely correct, Tim. And again, if any of you do shop in Inditex's, either Zara or Massimo Duetto, they will literally change the layout of the store almost on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So if you're a new employee and you haven't been trained properly and you covered the first 2 weeks and the next 2 weeks they change everything around, my goodness, you're all confused. So what they're doing is they're using this training almost in real time as they bring in new clothing, as they bring in new models, as they bring in store layout. It's a brilliant way to keep the actual retail staff developed appropriately. That's the real reason. Okay, we're going to step down a level to two small companies, but you'll know them because they're really famous and you probably own one or both of them. So the first one I will look at is Prada. And Prada is using VR training to elevate fashion skills. Prada being, of course, the Italian company. Now that one's a $5 billion company. Think about this now. I gave you $92 billion LVMH and we dropped it now down to $5 billion. So, 1/20th the size almost. But it's always been synonymous, Prada, with luxury and innovation, constantly striving to redefine the boundaries of fashion. Now, recently, the brand embraced VR technology as a leading or cutting-edge tool to enhance the skills of its workforce. And here their focus is on streamlining their creative process. By integrating VR into their training program, Prada aims to provide hands-on learning experience that transcends traditional methods. For design teams, for example, VR offers an immersive environment where you can experiment with textures and colors and patterns in a 3D dimensional space without the constraints of physical prototypes. This not only accelerates the design phase, but also encourages experimentation and creativity amongst the designers, new ideas, new concepts. And in the retail sector, Prada employs VR to simulate real-world scenarios, preparing staff to deliver exceptional customer service across all of their global stores. These virtual simulations help employees to engage with various customer types, navigate challenging sessions with ease and poise. Reminds me of how Walmart, 1 million employees of Walmart have been VR trained to deal with Black Friday and many others. Furthermore, VR allows Prada to conduct virtual walkthroughs of their flagship stores for training purposes, ensuring that staff remains consistent in visual merchandising and customer interaction standards. By leveraging VR technology, Prada not only stays ahead of the competition landscape, but also fortifies its skills of its employees, enabling them to embody the brand's long-standing commitment to excellence and innovation in every stitch and every interaction. And the final one, Tim, I want to look at is, again, this one is well known. It's called a mass brand. It's Tommy Hilfiger. And that's using VR to transform the training experience. So they're also a $5 billion company. So both Prada and Tommy Hilfiger are $5 billion. They've always been at the forefront of integrating innovation technology within the fashion industry to enhance their brand experience, and virtual reality is no exception. By incorporating VR into their training program, Tommy Hilfiger has revolutionized the ways employees learn about the brand, its products, and the overall fashion landscape. So they go a little wider. Through immersive VR training, employees attend virtual fashion shows. And if you haven't been to a virtual fashion show, they're fantastic because you're not seeing regular clothing necessary. You could see clothing that is built with ice cubes. You could see clothing that is built with smoke. You could see clothing that's built with fire. You could see clothing that's built with the bark of trees. I mean, it's all possible, providing them with front row perspective that would otherwise be inaccessible. This virtual access allows the staff of Tommy Hilfiger to witness the latest collections in action, understand the design philosophy between each piece, and appreciate the intricate details that define the brand's unique style. Additionally, Tommy Hilfiger, like many of the other brands I've talked about, simulates in-store environments. It enables a sales associate to hone their customer interaction skills in real-life scenarios without the pressure of an actual retail setting. Not only boosts the confidence, as we've already alluded to, but also enhances customer service quality. And again, just for a pause, for those that are not familiar, the old way of doing VR training is you would have an avatar, and they would go through basically lesson training, often like you do in a real classroom, but at least it was virtual and you could do it 24/7 and around the clock and around the world. There's a big difference today, and that gets down to this bit about enhancing customer service and understanding customers. Today's VR training is done with what is referred to as an AI trained avatar. So what you're doing is you're taking the avatar and you're overlaying it with AI knowledge. And you could literally ask the AI avatar to deal with a situation where you have just a sweet, customer, or you have a questionable customer, or you have a really mean customer, or you have a customer from hell. And what it does, it trains you how to deal with these types of customers to make sure you're driving consistent, high quality customer interaction and customer service. So the immense nature of VR also ensures that all of the Tommy Hilfiger employees retain information more effectively as they engage with content rather than passively consuming it. So they're actually engaging in it. By aligning training with cutting edge technology, Tommy Hilfiger empowers its workforce to embody the brand's value, deliver a premium customer experience, and ensure they remain competitive in an ever-evolving retail landscape where technology integration is key to success. And I'm going to close just with a thought, but I want to reinforce something that Tim has always said. This VR training has literally infiltrated the 10th or 11th largest industry in the world. They're not going back, and everybody knows that. And there's so many benefits to VR training that I just think it's fascinating that an entire industry, the very biggest and best players, have all adopted to it or adapted to it. And, it's just a good story of what the art of the possible for both XR technology, but in this case, VR training technology. Just wanted to throw that out there, Tim. Okay, let me finish up with, just for those that might be interested, how do you get started with VR training for your fashion brand? And so very shortly, to get started, you begin by assessing the specific training needs and objectives. And all these companies have training needs and objectives. Could range from improving design skills, enhancing customer service, familiarizing staff with new store layouts, etc. Next, you're going to invest in quality VR hardware and software that aligns with your goals. People like Tim and I specialize in that. We're more than happy to help you as appropriate. You'll then collaborate with your content creator or an agency that specializes in developing customized training modules tailored to the fashion industry. Again, that's a mix of what you might already be using, or it might be some of the new, more creative content that you can put inside an AI-trained avatar. You want to ensure that the VR content is interactive, it's engaging to maximize learning and retention in any agency that you choose, whether it be Tim and I or anybody else that knows their industry and knows the whole way of bringing about successful training, knows how to make sure you maximize learning and retention. You train the staff on how to use the VR equipment efficiently. You integrate regular VR training sessions into their schedules so they're not, learning each time. You gather feedback from the participants to continue to refine and improve VR experiences. You keep an eye on industry trends, that is what other fashion houses are doing, and advances in VR technology to stay up to date and ensure your training program remains cutting edge. In summary, I'd like to suggest that incorporating VR training can significantly enhance a fashion brand's operational efficiency. We've seen that in the brands I've talked about today. Employee engagement, overall customer experience, thereby positioning the fashion brands at the forefront of technological innovation. And in this industry, the use of technology to drive clothing is very, very important. So to stay ahead of the game technologically is in the best interest of every fashion brand out there, Tim.
So I think when you look at the examples we discussed today, a couple of things come to mind. Number one, they have taken a leadership position in the fashion industry really by using this as a competitive edge, making the whole concept of training more interactive, immersive, and on demand, and kind of shaking up the industry. I suspect that there are competitors and others out there, and especially ones that might even be smaller, are looking at these guys and saying, wow, this is a significant thing that we need to be investing in, or at least we need to be thinking about it. And you and I work with other companies that have been doing this, especially on the training side. It seems to me that we're at a point right now, at least in the VR, XR, MR, the training is almost the biggest spatial application outside of what's going on in gaming. Gaming obviously has always been a huge, multi-billion-dollar industry. But when you go to the enterprise side, and again, enterprises, to be fair, are also using it to help them build operational models and digital twins, etc. But this training focus is getting more and more play. And as we have shown over the last, especially the last, I think it's 10 weeks, 10 or so episodes, we've shared with you a little bit of other companies in various industries, the auto industry, the medical, etc. All of them have not only embraced the technology, but are especially using it in the training. And
I would surmise, Tim, I'll call a little bit out on the line here. We're 2024. By 2027, 2028, 2030 at the latest, there won't be classroom training anymore. It'll all be done through VR training. It's so much more cost efficient. The retention rates are so much higher. The satisfaction of the trainees is so much better. The ability to feel confident, in the training, so much better. The ability to then allow this to be, as you've already alluded to, 24/7 interactive at your pace. And when you use the big breakthrough for me anyhow was the AI trained avatar, because they can then slow down the training when they realize there's an issue and serve up more examples or serve up, tangential learning experiences so that the trainee is doing well within the training. So I just don't see how Tim and I are working on a case it's in the insurance industry. It's not in the fashion industry, but we just finished the business case of VR training for several hundred of their customer service and what they call claims adjusters. And I'm not at liberty to give you the exact figures, but let's just say they're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars for this training and millions of dollars in new revenues as they bring about a more revenue-driven contact center. So all this is done with training. And if you talk about onboarding, you're talking about bringing the onboarding costs down. And you read the Mayo Clinic is a good example of another podcast we did. But you'll see they bring it goes from months to weeks or weeks to days. And it's significant. It's 50, 60% less time because of the retention and the ability to the training to feel good. So there's just so many good reasons to do VR training. The platforms are available now. Companies like ours and others, they're very competent in knowing what platform seems to make the most sense. And then we're just at the beginning of the AI curve, Tim, and you know this more than I do, but I can just imagine what an AI trained avatar is going to look like in the fashion industry in the future. I mean, I just can't even imagine.
Before you sign off, let me mention one other thing that happened this week. Meta introduced their new Quest 3, they call it the 3S. It's a new headset that has both XR, VR features, but also AR features. And they broke the pricing model a little bit and introduced it at $299. The Quest 3, which is that has more memory and the faster processors, is still $499. But when you started to get to headsets that are in this $299 that you could easily use for most of this virtual training, as well as others out there that are even more expensive and probably have more bells and whistles. But even if you're talking about just getting started and being able to put your toes in the water, you could use the Quest 3S headsets at $299, get 4 or 5 of those, and get a group to work with you to customize some of your modules using various tools to actually convert them to an AR AI function. So that was news from this week. It's a very big piece that's very important. And then the other thing I would like to leave you with is when you really look at where we are, and from Barton and I standpoint, we've been emphasizing this for the last 3 to 4 years through both our Metaverse Resource Center and the work we're doing, etc. It's really exciting because you now are adding things like AI to this. So Barton, you mentioned, for example, that using the AI feature, that avatar could actually change things on advance. So if you're asking, how do I train, how do I deal with an individual who's a little more difficult to deal with or belligerent or whatever, the data, if it's written connected to AI, allows them to even change on the fly. And that's where this is going. I think that's what's making it so exciting, that we're actually seeing the marriage of artificial intelligence with AR, VR, and XR. And that's going to revolutionize the whole business process going forward.
Exciting times, Tim.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who joined us and listened to us, we appreciate you being with us and look forward to being with you again shortly. Thanks for listening to Business Success in a Virtual World. Barton and I have helped global companies successfully develop and implement strategies to utilize these new technologies. For more information or to contact us, please visit ismguide.com and select Metaverse Resource Center. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on your preferred platform.